So we are here to talk about producing. Okay. And I realized when I saw you earlier that I actually don't know how you got into producing and what was your first break or your first job?
I have a pretty simple and probably a story that doesn't really happen anymore, which is I interned at a production company, and it was a small company and they were in post on their first movie. And I just kind of soaked it up as like a film school. I didn't go to film school. Mm-hmm. I lived in New York, so I had PA'd and stuff on some like NYU shorts, mm-hmm. but when I moved to LA, I actually didn't really know I had no clue what I was doing, mm-hmm. or even really what I wanted to do. And I ended up interning at a couple of production companies, and then I landed at this one, and I just kept doing everything that no one else wanted to do, mm-hmm. to learn. And every time I was like, okay, I'm going to leave now. And they were like, no, please don't leave. And then I just ended up staying. And that company evolved, and I evolved with it, and I'm actually still there. So...
Really, you started...
now I'm president of the company, but I was an intern.
So it was Ambush at the time?
It was Ambush at the time.
Okay.
And then about 5 years ago, Ambush shuttered, and Miranda and I became Cold Iron.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often anymore.
No, it doesn't really happen.
That's lovely. I did not know that. No, it's interesting you say that, because the producer's job, right, is to just figure out whatever needs to get done, you do.
Yeah, and it was very much like there were people, and people didn't want to do things. Yeah. And so I wanted to at least learn how to do it. So I just did it. Right. Plus, I was low on the totem pole, so I didn't really have a choice to say no.
When it's that idea of making yourself... I feel like we're in our business where everyone feels disposable. Yeah. There's always someone younger or somebody who wants to come up the ladder, but by doing that kind of thing, you're showing why you're valuable and why they should keep you around.
Yeah, because especially if no one wants to do it, one, because a lot of it sucks, yeah. but also because they don't actually really know how. So then you know how, and then it feels like you're magic or something.
What's the part of producing now that you do that you feel like you have to do it, but you hate doing it?
Oh my God. Well, I probably don't have to do it, but it always feels like I have to do it. Yeah. I hate dealing with like the post minutia. Mm-hmm. Music licenses are like the bane of my existence. Right. And everyone always tells me I don't have to do it, but I don't know how they figured out how to get out of it, because I have yet to figure out how to get out of it.
But you work with post supervisors, or you work with music supervisors?
I work with music supervisors, but I often post supervise our movies. And by then, in post, there's nobody else left. Everyone's left. They've gone on to something else. And so it's really just me.
Now, Cold Iron also, it's a production company and a finance company.
Yes.
And you are president of the company.
Yep.
I think it gives you a really unique kind of point of view when you're looking at projects, if you're both looking at it as with your producer head and a financier head, which there should be some crossover, because producers have to be thinking about the financials, but you're really coming at everything with a different perspective. And so what do you feel like, as like financier hat on, are the things you're really looking for in a project, or just markers or things you want to hear from either the filmmakers or directors or producers who are sending you stuff?
Is it unique in the marketplace is sort of my number one thing, because there's lovely scripts that I've read with filmmakers I'd love to work with that I just don't see how it's different, how that's a story that hasn't been told yet. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to put money into it, I have to think about that, because I have to think about, are we going to recoup? What is the worst case scenario of what this is going to sell for at a film festival? And will that even get us out? We'll definitely sign on to risky projects. Swiss Army Man was not in any way a given, but have to think about, can this be pulled off on the budget that we want? And all producers that are good, I think, care about whether or not their financiers make their money back. But that, I'm both sides of that. So
right. I mean, Swiss Army Man is a good example, because it hits what you're talking about in terms of being unique in the market. But what I find to be a challenge is the things that are unique usually don't have comps, right? You usually can't point to a particular film and say it's just like this, or it can perform like this. And so how do you fill that gap in terms of wanting to do a unique, original stuff, but then can't look at another film to say it performed?
Yeah, Swiss was funny because it was this, I think people were really excited by those filmmakers. So we had lots of people who were interested in working with them, but afraid of the project. So, I'd take meetings with other potential financing partners, and then they'd be like, but wait, did you see their work? And I was like, of course I've seen their work. And they'd be like, yeah, we can't do that. And I'm like, why did you want to do it?
Music video directors.
Yes.
Right?
And they've, they're, in particular, this was their short film, Interesting Ball. And it's weird.
Yeah.
But that's what's great about them. Like, they're very unique. But it was challenging, too, with getting estimates for, one of the key points for me is always like, okay, well, what's the foreign value, and let's at least get some estimates. So let's not make a movie for more than what the estimates are for. And it was very difficult to get estimates for that movie because people were like, there are no comps. What is this? I don't know what it is. It's completely execution dependent. So we want to rep it, we don't want to rep it. Well, there was a lot of that.
What do you think you did to convince?
Well, in the end, we did not have a foreign sales agent because people were interested, but they were scared. So nobody would really come on board. You
had name cast.
We had name cast. We had Dano, Radcliffe, and Dano. So it's not like we didn't have anyone in it. They just didn't know what it was going to be, even with them. So we did get some estimates, conservative estimates, but no one would actually really sign on to it, but then we had 3 domestic sales agents.
You did.
So that overcompensated.
How did that happen?
So Cold Iron's at ICM. So ICM was always on the project. And then one actor is at WME and one actor is at UTA. And it's muscling, a little bustling.
How did you balance those different interests? And, because everyone comes at it, especially if they're repping you or they're repping the actor, they all want something different out of it. And that's a lot of reps to deal with.
It is. I think it was a struggle in the beginning because everyone is trying to prove their worth. There were a lot of producers on the movie too. So
How
it's
many?
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 produced by 6 producers in all.
Wow.
And then a couple more APs.
So what does the produced by credit mean to you?
A lot of projects come to me and there's already somebody on them. And I love working with other people. I think producing can be very lonely. So I feel lucky that, I produced with my partner Miranda Bailey, and that's great. And when other people are on board, I think that's great too. I prefer it, actually. I don't really like to do it alone. But it's always this thing, a project come to us, and because we're going to put some money into it, they assume that's all we're going to do. And then the struggle, even though it's our money, the struggle of validating my own existence on this project is always very interesting.
Yeah. I
always feel like then people are like, oh, you do work. I'm like, yes, I do. I do produce, actually. Oh, look, I'm the last one on. Yeah. But yeah, it's a struggle because everybody wants the best credit, but not everybody's gonna do the same job. And there are people who do things so much better than me. I'm not very good at get the ball rolling, but I will keep it going. I'll keep that train on the tracks and get us to our destination. But the initial spark is not my strength. And some people are really good at that and then not so good at anything else.
Have you been in a situation where you feel like they're just looking at you as, in the producer role for the money?
Cut the check and go away. But I think people don't even realize, no, actually, that's not what you want at all. There's so many fights you don't want to have to be personally having along the way. And directors sometimes don't realize how much actually happens that they're completely unaware of. And just having the money doesn't mean that it's going to be spent well. Right. So yeah, it's sometimes a struggle it's a struggle as a financier, but because we aren't just financiers, we are producers who will put money in, but also we're not fully financing movies. So if we come on board, now we're going to put the rest of the money together and find the rest of the money. And that's not always easy. When
people are coming to you with projects, as a financier first, what do you like to see And what do you feel like some of the mistakes are when people are reaching out to you or submitting to you? Both people maybe you already know, and also just, the blind submissions that come in.
I like to see that people have a clear vision for what they want, but are also willing to be flexible and like understand that they're not going to necessarily get everything that they want, but like creatively have a clear vision and be able to articulate that vision and not be like too wishy-washy about it, but also, not it's this way or it can't, or that's it. And collaborative, people that are open to actually collaborating, but I don't need someone who's like, I hate actually when people are like, oh, I've already done this budget and I've already done all of this work, because I've never seen a budget that's actually a budget I end up shooting a movie for. Like,
really?
No one's ever brought me a film with a budget
that's accurate.
that was accurate.
Yeah.
If it's very low budget,
yeah,
that's more helpful, I think, because those are harder to achieve. It's not as plug and play with the budget, right? So like, if you tell me you're going to make this movie for $500,000, I hope you know how to do that.
Yeah. What do you want to see as a producer that gives you the confidence to move forward?
To me, it really is about vision, and it's not even. We've done movies where, like Swiss Army Man, those directors had a lot of work to point to, and that was conceptual, right? So that was a thing where they had shot a lot of things that conceptually were like what they were going to pull off. And so their script was super ambitious, but it was obvious the way that they intended on pulling it off. And even if it wasn't exactly, it was like, okay, I get what you're going for, and I see that you can do that.
Right.
Marielle, when we did Diary of a Teenage Girl, had never shot anything. She was an actress, and she had directed plays before, but she hadn't directed anything on screen. But she had a killer teaser, and there was no dialogue in it. It was just like a girl walking around San Francisco, but it caught the vibe of the movie so perfectly. You were like, if that's what the movie feels like, then this is going to be fantastic.
What did you do to kind of prepare her for the experience?
Yeah, I think surrounding a director with department heads who are very clearly understand their vision, and really prep is so important, and whatever prep you can do before you're actually in prep spending money, have really look at the script and figure out what really needs to be there and what doesn't, and make sure that everybody's there for the right reasons. The smaller the movie, everyone has to be there for the right reasons. And creatively, I think they really need to believe in it. And the key department heads, and just make sure people have grand ideas about what they want. But do they really need it to tell the story? I think I've definitely had people be like, I need a crane, I need this, I need that. But you're like, do you, is that even the best way to tell that story?
Right. And
kind of just really, even if you don't have to agree on the answer, but I think having those conversations and just being like, well, why? Why is it that you feel like you need this? Explain your point of view. I'm going to explain my point of view. And I might not win. I might not be right. But
there's usually an I told you so later.
Yeah, I love those moments. But let's have a conversation.
Well, I think in terms of surrounding people, what I try to do, and I'm wondering if you've been up against it, where it's a first-time feature director and they want to bring all their friends from school or from a short, but you also need to pepper in people with more experience. And so how have you had to kind of convince any directors that, I know you really love this particular production designer, but I don't know that they're ready for this?
Yeah, it's been interesting, because I think it's worked both ways. Swiss Army Man, it's a little bit different because they had worked with a lot of people who first had a lot of experience doing commercials and other things, and they had such a shorthand. So in that case, I think that's there is a value in bringing people who you have worked with before, because they worked with a lot of their crew that they know exactly what they want, and they know there's a shorthand there that was incredibly valuable, and I think couldn't have made that movie happen without it. But there were definitely key departments they didn't have people to call on, like effects or the person, Jason, who actually made the body and did all of that work, right? And so that was someone that Miranda and I had worked with before that we brought in, and it was like, and they just clicked automatically, which was great. But it was like, there's definitely like key things where you need people.
Your company is interesting too, because you're producers, you're financiers, but you also own a distribution company.
Yes.
And you and I talk a lot about the distribution process and how hard it is. I just want to kind of get your thoughts on that phase of the process.
I think it's important to think about it very early on, even if you aren't sharing those thoughts right away with other people. But I think it's important to be like, okay, well, who is the audience for this movie, and how wide do we think we can go? And if it's only life is a streaming life, especially now with a lot of the streamers not picking up movies after the fact, smaller movies, then that's really hard. I think you always want to hope that your movie like could have a shot. It doesn't mean that it's going to have a wide theatrical, but at very limited, like can I see people going to the theater to see this? Yeah, I think that matters. If it just, because I don't make movies that I feel like are just tossaways. Like, I have nothing to watch, let's click through a bunch of things. Oh, look there, that one sounds fun and mindless, and I can have it on in the background. Like, that's not the kind of movies I want to make. So just aiming for something that people are going to watch for on a plane, or just alone on a Wednesday night at home is not the kind of movies I want to make. So I definitely don't want to aim for only a streaming audience.
When you said earlier in your answer, streamers aren't picking up films after the fact. Will you explain what you meant by that?
One thing that's a real challenge is that it's changing every single year. Mm-hmm. You'll have a year where the streamers don't buy anything, and then the next year they're dropping $50 million at Sundance. You just can't really know like which way that's going to go or what it is that they want. They're not operating on the same system as everyone else.
How do we deal with that as producers in terms of properly representing what we feel like, how responsible we can be with the money we're raising? If it's 1 year it's this and 1 year it's that. And I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer, because I think a lot of it, like, people will always, especially as a financier, will always send me these lookbooks with projections and be like, look, these movies made this at the box office. Okay, that doesn't mean shit, because that didn't go to the people who made the movie. It didn't go to the financier. Like, something made so much money at the box office. There's so many things in the waterfall before that gets down to even the financier and definitely the producer. So that doesn't mean anything. What did it sell for is more relevant, but also seems to just change with the wind sometimes. I think there's some things just like trying to be responsible about knowing what your budget is. Is there a tax credit? Is there potential other sources of income there? It's all speculative to a certain degree, but can you license your music that can actually be valuable if your music is unique? The tax credit is obviously helpful, just keeping the budget realistic. And does your cast matter? Even if it doesn't have to be movie stars, but like, does it tap into something, or does it tap into a specific audience? And just trying to be responsible about that. But I don't know how to break that down from a math perspective. Like, I don't know, especially for independent film, it just feels very speculative.
So then how do you define success?
Ooh. It's the best when people have seen your movie and they don't even know it's your movie, and then they talk about it. Yeah. That's the best feeling. Or people you really respect being like, oh, I'm a fan of that. That's pretty great. But just connecting, like seeing people connect with something that you've made is very exciting to me. That is more successful than I work in independent film. It's not the money. But yeah, just connecting with an audience, I think. And even like years after a movie is made, that's pretty exciting. That's success to me. Financier, making your money back, successful. That's a success. making money even more success in order to be able to continue to make movies.